Mutants can be insanely powerful, especially when they're evil. Over the years in Marvel's panels, we've seen the X-Men and other heroes alike go up against some immensely strong mutant supervillain foes, and they've always managed to baffle us with how exceptional they are in terms of their power. Cassandra Nova is a psionic parasitic life form that was born without a body on the astral plane. She's technically a race called a Mumundrai. Having become telepathically entangled with Charles Xavier, she copied his DNA and inherited some of his powers, adding to the already impressive skill set that this life form boasted. Okay, so context time. Nova copied Xavier's DNA to make herself a body, and then shared his mother's womb with him. Once she had fully formed hands and eyes in the womb, she tried to strangle Xavier to death with his own umbilical cord. That's metal. But Xavier released a psychic blast, which then caused his mother to have a miscarriage, and Cassandra ended up being a stillborn, although she managed to survive as cellular matter until she was able to grow a body for herself over time. So what is she capable of? Well, some terrifying stuff, that's what. She has telepathic and telekinetic powers, can duplicate DNA, has spontaneous cell regeneration, can shapeshift, can control cosmic fire, is immune to magic, and has premonitions. She can also control minds, gather souls, and dematerialize. In at number 9, Mr. Sinister. Created in 1986 but not fully seen on the panels until almost a year later in Uncanny X-Men issue 221, Mr. Sinister is Nathaniel Essex, a biologist who is obsessed with evolution and Darwinism. He is a genetically altered human who has become a mutant via his own genetic manipulation. He is telepathic, telekinetic, and through experimentation with genetic material from a mutant called Courier, he has gained complete control of his body at the cellular level, meaning he can shapeshift, regenerate, and be virtually immune to most injuries. He also has a prolonged lifespan. In addition to that, he is a complete genius when it comes to biology, genetics, cloning, physics, and engineering. In at number 8, Vulcan. Vulcan is a Summers boy. The brother of Cyclops and Havoc, Vulcan, aka Gabriel Summers, first appeared in X-Men Deadly Genesis issue 1 and had a much more tragic alien upbringing compared to his siblings. His infant body was aged to adolescence through a Shi'ar incubation accelerator. So yeah, definitely not a normal childhood. An Omega-level mutant, Vulcan is capable of vast energy absorption, manipulation, transformation, and projection. He can fly. He can project force fields and manipulate said projections. He can regenerate to an extent and provide life support. And he can replicate others' superpowers to an extent. Plus, he's psionically resistant. Not too shabby. And at number 7, Monarch. Not to be confused with the Monarch of DC fame, this Monarch is James Braddock Jr., brother to Captain Britain, Brian Braddock, and Betsy Braddock. An Omega-level mutant, Braddock has quantum reality manipulation powers. Now this means he sees the world as invisible string constructs, and he can pull on those strings to transform reality. He is also experienced in sorcery and has a superhuman stamina. Now unlike his siblings, he shifted into a life of crime early on, and eventually had to be put into a coma by his sister, while she was Psylocke, in order to stop his reign of terror with his reality warping powers. In at number 6, we have Exodus. Exodus, aka Benet du Paris, first hit Marvel's panels in 1993's X-Factor issue 92, capable of telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, superhuman physical attributes, and has a regenerative healing factor. Oh, and obviously he's immortal. This Omega-level mutant has kicked some major X-Men butt in the past. His telepathic abilities surpass those of Charles Xavier, Emma Frost, X-Men, and Jean Grey. He's also a psionic vampire and can steal psionic energy from those around him if he's weakened. Plus, he can handle a whole lot, taking not only the X-Men, but also the Avengers on at the same time. Moving on to our number 5 spot, we have Magneto. This one's kind of an obvious one, isn't it? An Omega-level mutant and the most iconic character to appear on this list, Magneto is one of the most beloved villains of all time as far as comics are concerned. He is a villain with a point, a Holocaust survivor who uses extreme methods and a cynical philosophy in order to protect mutants from suffering a similar fate of persecution at the hands of a world that fears them. His ideology is in direct competition with that of Xavier's, and he rejects the idea of a peaceful human and mutant coexistence. He also believes that mutants are the evolutionary superior race. Aside from his intellect and his ideologies, Magneto is dangerous for his magnetism manipulation abilities. Like we said, he is an Omega-level mutant, meaning there is no actual cap to his powers or capabilities that we know of. Speaking of Omega-level mutants, let's go to our next number. In at 4, Legion. Really, Legion isn't a villain, but he's a character who has put a lot at jeopardy as far as mutant kind is concerned. So, Legion is the son of Charles Xavier and Gabrielle Haller, and is an Omega-level mutant with a vast amount of abilities that include reality warping, shape-shifting, matter manipulation and transmutation, energy manipulation, telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, and time travel. Legion, aka David Haller, also has hundreds and hundreds of split personalities. He's way more of an anti-hero these days, but initially the character caused a whole lot of trouble for the X-Men when he tried to go back in time to kill Magneto as a means of helping his father achieve his dream of human-mutant coexistence. And in doing so, he accidentally created the Age of Apocalypse timeline. Yeah. In at number 3, Onslaught. Onslaught is a psionic amalgamation of two exceptionally powerful mutants. We're talking Charles Xavier and Magneto. Okay, story time. In 1996, in X-Men Volume 2, Issue 53, Onslaught was created as the result of Charles Xavier putting Magneto into a coma. Now, prior to this, Magneto had used his powers to rip the adamantium off of Wolverine's skeleton. It was pretty brutal, and caused Xavier to be slightly unhinged. He lost it and used his telepathic powers to render Magneto catatonic, shutting down his mind. Now, during this psionic contact, all of Magneto's anger, grief, and desire for vengeance entered Xavier's consciousness, and then mingled with all of Xavier's negative suppressed feelings that he had buried deep down. The result was a sentient psionic entity called Onslaught, who was too powerful for just the X-Men to take on. The Avengers and the Fantastic Four had to get involved too to stop him. He is a villain with psychic omnipotence, who is superior in physical and mental power. He possesses the combined abilities of Professor X, Magneto, Franklin Richards, and Nate Gray, and overall, his powers exceed that of an Omega-level mutant. In at number 2, Proteus. Proteus is our last Omega-level mutant on this list. The son of Moira McTaggart, Proteus is Kevin McTaggart, a mutant with reality warping and possession powers who lived most of his life in seclusion at his mother's Muir Island research facility. Now, this is because he exists in a state of pure psionic energy and can take possession of human bodies, with most of the bodies burning out within a few days or hours. His vast psionic abilities allow him to fully dominate said individual he possesses, and he has access to the individual's memories during this time. Although he cannot do this with those who have metal in their bodies. It's actually his weakness, and seems to disperse his consciousness if he tries to enter them. So, the likes of Wolverine can withstand him. Now, his reality manipulation abilities allow him to bend the laws of physics and transmute matter. He can do this with absolute ease, and that is terrifying. These days, like several other mutants on our list, Proteus is one of the good guys, aligned with the mutants of Krakoa, and is actually part of a group called the Five. It consists of 5 mutants who use their abilities to revive dead mutants. And last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Apocalypse. Apocalypse can pretty much do anything. The character who first fully appeared in X-Factor issue 6 back in 1986 believes in the survival of the fittest. If you are weak, you are destroyed. Apocalypse is all about trying to forward evolution, and he believes he's right in his actions too. That's a deadly mentality. And what about his powers? Well, they all stem from his self-molecular control. This means that he has molecular, matter, energy, and universal manipulation abilities. He's omnipotent, he's omnipresent, and he is immortal, invulnerable, has superhuman strength, stamina, speed, durability, agility, reflexes, resilience, dexterity, intelligence, and senses. He's got a genius level intellect, he can fly, he is a shapeshifter, he can astral project, he's telekinetic, telepathic, a technopath, precognitive, can augment the powers of other mutants, can transfer consciousness to another being, has the ability to absorb, manipulate, or steal the powers of other mutants and cosmic beings, and he has the ability to make other mutants' powers stronger. So all in all, there's a reason why he's the most feared villain of the X-Men's. Although these days, post House of X, he's on the good guy's side now, and goes by a symbol for a name that no one can pronounce.
Number 10, Quicksilver. Okay, so I know Pietro is no longer considered a mutant, and that he and his sister were both retconned out of that realm. But I think that we can still all acknowledge and respect that for a long time he was known as the fastest mutant out there. In fact, the X-Men films made him so fast that many even questioned, why would you have anyone else on that team? Why is that even necessary? Quicksilver could do anything. If you have Evan Peters Quicksilver around, you just need a team of 1. He was just ridiculously fast. For him, time stood still. Now granted, as I said, he's no longer considered a mutant, but I could do a top 10 list about all of the plot holes that retcon created, so please just let me have this one spot in memory of how awesome of a mutant Quicksilver once was. I mean, he's still an awesome character, of course, but he's no longer a mutant. which is why he gets the number 10 spot. Number 9, Gambit. When it comes to reflexes, Gambit has to be one of the fastest mutants around. Remy LeBeau has insanely fast and high-level reflexes when it comes to dodging all kinds of projectiles, laser beams, and, well, just about anything that you can throw his way. This is due to the fact that Remy was raised in the Thieves Guild and was trained at a young age to become one of the most agile thieves around. He is also, of course, trained with the X-Men in the Danger Room to work on honing his skills. And he can even use his mutant powers to tap into energy and use it to enhance his own speed. Number 8, Thanos. Even when Thanos doesn't have his chair to help him teleport around, he's still fairly fast moving, just on foot, even being as big of a guy as he is. You may have forgotten, or you may not know this, but Thanos is actually both a Titan and a mutant. He's a mutant of the Titanian race. His feats for speed include being able to stop Thor's incoming hammer from a close range. He was fast enough to stop it with a single gesture, which is just impressive in and of itself, and being quick enough to dodge an attack from Slatteris, champion of the universe, when he was in possession of the Power Stone. Granted, not that the Power Stone makes you faster, but it's still impressive that he's just dodging those powerful hits. And Trico's pretty fast. Number 7, Nightcrawler. Okay, so yes, Nightcrawler is a teleporter, and I know I said I was going to try to not go there, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit here by including him, but even ignoring his teleportation powers, which would of course place him at the tippy top of this list, Kurt is still pretty fast even without them. Nightcrawler has been fast enough to dodge closer range bullets from what appear to be a small Gatling or a machine gun, and has been shown to be capable of outrunning Danger Room missiles. Spider-Man has even said before that Nightcrawler's agility and reflexes rival even his own, which is pretty impressive because Spider-Man's pretty quick. Number 6, Cannonball. Sam Guthrie is a fan favorite when it comes to the world of X-Men and mutants. His abilities allow him to summon a force field while moving at superhuman speeds. He can fly and use his force field to shield himself and others or attack with it. He has been shown to move within a fraction of a second, managing to distract Quicksilver long enough to catch him off guard. He also constantly manages to react fast enough to protect himself and others against surprise explosions, gunfire, and psychic attacks. And he's also managed to move fast enough to outmaneuver the skilled fighter and fellow X-Men member Psylocke, which is pretty impressive. She's a pretty skilled fighter and pretty quick. Number 5, Speed. Some think it's possible Speed could even end up being faster than Quicksilver. Speed is Thomas Shepard, a mutant who comes to us from the original roster of the Young Avengers. While we don't quite know how fast he can run, we know that he can move at least at speeds of Mach 4. That's the same speed as sound, and means he can cover almost 5,000 kilometers, or just over 3,000 miles per hour. That is fast. His heightened speed also dramatically increases his reaction time when it comes to his reflexes and his agility in a fight. Number 4, Magneto. Maybe not the guy you'd originally have thought of when you thought of a fast mutant. You may have not come into this list being like, I bet Magneto will be on it. But you better believe it, Magneto is speedier than you initially thought he was. He is fast enough to catch a bullet and even catch and stop multiple ones before they can hit when targeted by multiple guns at close range. And sure, his whole mutant powers are magnetism, so we could say he's fast, but only with this specific power set. But even then, we'd kind of be wrong. He has not only been able to react fast enough, granted using his powers, to stop Quicksilver from getting away, but he was also fast enough to momentarily catch Northstar with his bare hands, whose speed could, in theory, approach the speed of light. In theory. More on that later. Number 3, Apocalypse. Apocalypse's evolutionary abilities allow him to be advanced kind of across the board. He can modify his molecular structure to make himself insanely durable, strong, psychically abled, and of course, super fast as well. He can move so fast, he has also managed to block attacks from Thor and stop Quicksilver dead in his tracks, even going so far as to taunt Pietro, declaring that the speedster was simply no match for him, and that Quicksilver's speed was useless against him. Ooh, ugh, sick burn. He's like, you can't even, your speed does nothing. Can't touch me, Quicksilver. Apocalypse. Number 2, Aurora. Jean-Marie Boubier is the twin sister of North Star Jean-Paul Boubier. She is known for her time as a member of the Canadian hero team Alpha Flight, where she was an integral part of the team. Her powers are identical to her brother's, making her capable of potentially nearing the speed of light. Potentially. However, she did have her body at one point molecularly restructured by a Dr. Langowski, which resulted in a slight reduction to her speed, unfortunately. Though Aurora is still faster than the speed of sound, she's no longer chasing the speed of light like her brother potentially can. Number 1, North Star. Were you surprised by this or not? And of course, finally, North Star. North Star was one of the few mutants at the time when Quicksilver was still considered a mutant, who could have potentially rivaled him as being one of the fastest mutants out there, as well as one of the fastest characters within the Marvel Universe, period. Like his twin sister, Jean-Paul was also a valued member of Alpha Flight, and even spent some time on the X-Men roster as well, though he was initially hesitant to join, as he thought they might just want him for marketing reasons, being that he is one of the few openly gay mutants. But they assured him that his skills, abilities, and his attitude were more what they were after. His abilities allow him to use kinetic energy to increase the speed of his entire body, or just parts of his body. In theory, he could potentially move near to the speed of light, Mach 1, but we've never seen him do so, likely because of how much strain it would put on him physically as well as mentally, and the fact that doing so could actually harm those in his vicinity. Still, the fact that it could even be possible makes him pretty fast. And even without it, even if he doesn't approach the speed of light, he's still one of the fastest around.
Number 10, Sonic Flight. Even with Sean Cassidy's accepted superhuman vocal stamina, this ability appears to be an odd one that doesn't really make a ton of sense. Banshee can produce a sonic scream, which he can use as a form of sonar, to injure those he fights with in battle and to shield himself or others, or disorient his enemies. Sure, that makes sense. But he also uses his sonic scream to fly, which would make sense if he were just using the ability to say, fly up to the second story of a building. But he has used this ability to fly longer distances as well, like over the ocean and stuff. However, in order to remain altitude and stay in the air, he has to keep screaming. So wait, how does he breathe? Well, we know he has enhanced vocal stamina, but this still doesn't really explain long trips. The answer is that he uses a winged gliding suit that allows him the time he needs to apparently breathe. However, without his winged gliding suit, his sonic flight powers would be pretty much useless. So yeah, kind of a weird ability. Number 9, tentacles. Tentacles. Not to say that tentacles are inherently bad, by the way. They aren't, but what they are is kinda random, especially in this case. The tentacles I wanted to talk about here were Callisto's random tentacles. Callisto never really had tentacles until the early 2000s, but where did they come from? After all, she was introduced in the 1980s without them, and they just kinda seemed to appear one day. Mask was to blame for this alteration to Callisto's look, though she still had her famous eye patch at the time. She's never lost that, by the way. Mask gave Callisto tentacles to torment her. After he was defeated once more, she decided to actually keep them instead of be changed back. Not because they were useful, but because she refused to bargain with Mask anymore, so she just decided to accept them. She was like, I'm cool with these tentacles. The super weird thing is, although they were not a mutation of her own, they still disappeared along with her powers during the events of M-Day. Huh? Number 8, superpower manipulation. This is one that people can't seem to wrap their heads around because, well, it's just too overpowered, and why Hope Summers isn't utilized in the comics as often as someone of her power level could be, or maybe should be depending on your opinion. Superpower manipulation is a weird one because it basically isn't a power that has any inherent weaknesses attached to it. You can do whatever you need to with that power. The possibilities are pretty much endless. In giving Hope this power, they created something virtually undefeatable. But when we read comics, the struggle is what we usually most enjoy exploring and reading about. So from a writer and storyteller context, this makes Hope's power a hard one to feature and use in comics, which is why you might notice stories that involve her don't usually focus on her insane power set. Number 7, unlimited magics. I feel like people often forget that Illyana Rasputin's real mutant power is teleportation. She's a teleporter. And yet we all get more wrapped up in her magical abilities, her soul sword. Magik actually only has such powerful magical abilities because she was kidnapped by Belasco when she was very little, which is pretty weird. Just because she was tied to Limbo through her teleportation powers, where Limbo is basically a stepping stone for her while teleporting, she now just has unlimited magical power? Huh? Also, that whole story of Belasco kidnapping young Ileana, basically torturing her, and yet admiring and cherishing her as his protege all at the same time is just pretty odd and nonsensical to begin with. Number 6. Flaming prehensile tongue. Toad has all sorts of odd abilities, but one of the most bizarre and odd by far is his prehensile tongue. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but Amanda, he's Toad. Sticky prehensile tongue should make sense for any amphibian-based mutants. But what about when we decide to make it flaming? Yeah, I know, right? That's weird. That was an update that Toad's tongue saw in the comics. Why? I guess because it looked cool. But his tongue was already not a super useful power to have, and adding flames, it doesn't really make it any more useful. Does make it look cooler though, I guess.
You know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? The same thing happens to everything else.
Number 5. Eggs. There's a few occurrences of this with mutants. Angel Salvador has this ability due to her insect physiology. It doesn't really do much as a power for her, it's just part of the way that she reproduces. Though it is pretty creepy and a little gross. But then again, so is most stuff involving the creation of new life, am I right? One of the other now remarkably famous mutants who have had this weird ability? Gold Balls, who now actually goes by the name Egg. He actually changed his code name due to the revelation regarding his powers. Originally, we just thought Gold Balls emitted gold bouncy balls out of his body, which seemed pretty odd and well, kinda useless. But then we realized in the events of Dawn of X that these gold balls were actually infertile eggs, which is also kinda useless. Unless, that is, you have the other 4 insanely powerful members of the mutant group known as the Five around you. When matched up with Elixir, Tempest, Hope Summers, and Proteus, Egg's abilities revealed themselves as being mighty useful, as together the 5 can combine their power sets in order to resurrect any of their fallen comrades. Still weird, but also kinda now amazing? Number 4. Aviation. The power of aviation through non-telekinetic means, that is. Most mutants that can naturally fly usually have this power as a result of a physical mutation. Some are simply granted wings, like Angel or Pixie, who otherwise find themselves looking like a standard human exteriorly, but some find themselves with a full-on bird-like mutation, like Beak. Beak's aviation mutation, depending on the artist, can leave him looking pretty all-out freaky. He's either drawn like a full-on bird person, or sometimes like a hybrid bird-human. His aviation mutation barely even gives him flight abilities as well. He isn't great at flying, but he can manage to do it for very short distances if he really tries. So why does he look like a bird then? It's not really useful. Number 3. Hollow bones. Speaking of flight-related mutations, one common trait that you'll see presented as a power or a perk is hollow bones. Angel and Beak both have hollow bones. What it's supposed to help with in regards to those mutants is help them accomplish the ability to fly. And I mean, usually it does by making them significantly lighter, but also hollow bones sound like something terrible to have in the midst of a battle. Somehow Angel has been presented as being very durable, despite the fact that his hollow bones have to exist in order for his flight powers to work and make sense. But if his bones are hollow, then shouldn't punches from foes with super strength cripple the poor original X-Men team member? Like what?
My only regret is that I have bonitis.
Number 2. Become ice cream. So far we've only seen this very specific mutant power once, and only in one single issue, and not even an issue of X-Men either, but instead Obnoxio, the clown's own series. One issue series. The mutant who possessed this ability? Ice Cream. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I know, a very original name. Ice Cream. Ice Cream used his abilities to infiltrate the X-Mansion, planning to put an end to the super team because their abilities made him feel ridiculous by comparison. I mean, I don't blame him. How he expected to accomplish this, however, with his power set being so useless, well, I have no idea. Number 1. Love Eyes. In all new Dupe, we gotta learn even more about Dupe's capabilities. Well, we don't really know what Dupe is still exactly. He has been a member of the X-Men, and hasn't been confirmed either way in regards to his mutant status, or, well, any other status for that matter. We don't know if he's an alien, or if he was made in a lab, or what's really going on with him. None of it's really fully been confirmed. What we do know is that he has a slew of insanely powerful and ridiculously cartoonish abilities. One such ability is Love Eyes, which seems to have no real specific purpose. Kitty Pryde suspected that he was using his love eyes to try and enchant her, casting a love spell on her, but Dupe claimed that they're just how he shows affection. Ineffective love spell or just a weird quirk. Either way, they're pretty irrational.
Number 10. Mystique. Raven Darkholme, also known as the villainous Mystique, can be very dangerous for a variety of reasons. One of the biggest ones being her ability to shapeshift. In an instant, she can become someone else entirely, and you never even know it. She can mimic every trait, even someone's voice. It's crazy. On top of that, she's also a highly skilled fighter, who usually uses her skills for some not so nice mutants. Although she has dabbled on the side of good every now and then. But, like her power, she's constantly changing, and that makes her even more dangerous. Number 9. Storm. Storm shouldn't come as a surprise. She is not only incredibly powerful, but is also a fan favorite. She has the mutant ability of weather manipulation. She can literally create massive blizzards, electrical storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, even tsunamis. Like, if that doesn't scream dangerous, then you need to get your definition of dangerous looked at. Seriously, not only is she dangerous on the power side, but she's also powerful in a lot of other ways. One of those being, she was once one of the leaders of Wakanda after marrying T'Challa, aka Black Panther. So she is someone you don't want to mess with. Unless you're crazy, then, just go right ahead. Number 8. Cable. General audiences recently became a lot more familiar with Cable because of his appearance in Deadpool 2. Cable, also known as Nathan Summers, is the time-traveling son of Scott Summers, Cyclops, and Madeline Pryor, who was later discovered to be a clone of Jean Grey. Man, the X-Men have some crazy love storylines. As I mentioned earlier, Cable is a time traveler, but along with that, his powers include, telepathic illusions, telepathic cloak, mind link, telepathic camouflage, mind control, telekinesis, and he has a cybernetic eye implant, which can fire a very powerful laser. So powerful that it has even destroyed one of the Avengers' jets at one point. Number 7. Deadpool. Wade Wilson. Who doesn't love that guy? He's just awesome. Just don't get on his bad side, and you'll be okay. Never mind. I think it's impossible to stay off of his bad side because he can just hate you in a split second for no reason at all. He's unpredictable. To go along with that, he's a highly skilled mercenary and has one of the best healing factors in the Marvel Universe, which makes him almost impossible to kill. But he has fought Wolverine multiple times. One of the first times was in Wolverine issue 88, and in that fight, Deadpool won by stabbing his swords right into Logan's lungs. Ah, man, that hurts even to say that. Wolverine got his revenge though in Cable and Deadpool issue number 44. The list goes on and on. But let's not forget what their most famous fight of all is, right? Can you guess it? Okay, I'll just tell you. It's their fight from X-Men Origins Wolverine, one of the greatest fights in cinematic history. Okay, you know what? I'm not even gonna joke about that. It's just too hard. Okay, deep breath. Okay, alright, I'm good. Alright, okay. Let's just continue. Let's just keep moving on. Number 6, Apocalypse. Apocalypse is a very, very dangerous dude. Not only is he one of the X-Men's greatest villains, but he's also believed to be one of the very first mutants, ever. That's just creepy and cool. He was born in Egypt around 3000 BC. Now, Apocalypse has what he believes to be a very simple philosophy, that only the strong should be able to survive. That's it. It doesn't just apply to mutants either. It could be anyone. If you're weak, just get out of town because Apocalypse has no plans for you. He even turned Wolverine into one of the 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse, the Horsemen of Death. Aside from that, the dude is basically immortal. He has super strength, teleportation, telekinesis, telepathy, self-molecular manipulation. So you can say he's pretty dangerous. There's a reason the X-Men fear him so much. Number 5, Legion. Legion, also known as David Haller, is a really interesting one. For the longest time, he was really unknown to anyone that wasn't a hardcore X-Men fan. But after getting his own critically acclaimed show on FX, he became fairly popular. David is the son of Charles Xavier. He has a form of dissociative identity disorder, which leads into his name, Legion, for his legion of personalities. The interesting thing about him is that his personalities have different mutant abilities. So, for example, one could have telekinesis, another telepathy, another super strength. It's kind of insane. It makes him really powerful, but also incredibly dangerous. You would have no idea what kind of fight you'd be getting yourself into. One moment he could be on your good side, but then a split second, he's against you with a completely new ability. It's that level of unpredictability that is truly terrifying. Now, Legion also leads us into the next person on our list pretty perfectly. Number 4, Charles Xavier. Yeah, his dad, the founder of the X-Men, good old Professor X. Now, Charles and Logan are almost always on the same side, so it's very unlikely that, they would get into a fight. But if they did, it would be really interesting. Charles is one of the most powerful telepaths in the Marvel Universe. Not only that, he's also one of the smartest people in the Marvel Universe. Put those two things together and you have a very dangerous combo. He can create, telepathic illusions, create a mental link which becomes even more powerful when he's plugged into Cerebro. He can also use his abilities to control the minds of other people. Charles has even taken over someone else's mind completely, where he has been able to control their body. It's kind of insane. And it just goes to show why you really don't want to get on his bad side. But luckily, he usually uses his powers for good and helps out so many mutants in the process. Although, he has made some very questionable decisions along the way. But who hasn't, right? Number 3, Scarlet Witch. Even though it has changed, I'm still considering Scarlet Witch to be a mutant. I'm sorry, it's just, I have to. It will be forever ingrained in my brain that she's a mutant. And I don't think anything will ever change that. But, back to the main point, she's super dangerous. Almost wiped out every mutant in existence with a single word, dangerous. Yeah, she's literally responsible for millions of mutants losing their powers during the House of M storyline. Not only that, but she is also one of the strongest magic users in the universe. She can use chaos magic to warp reality and is a very, very skilled fighter. Throw in that she's also the daughter of Magneto and, that's a pretty dangerous individual. Even look at her in her live action appearances. She was able to take on Thanos in Endgame to the point where she almost probably would have killed him if it wasn't for, his ship starting to fire. And Kevin Feige has said that Wanda is one of the most powerful characters in the MCU. So that makes 2 different universes where she is dangerous and powerful. That definitely tells you something. Number 2, Jean Grey. Everyone knows how powerful Jean Grey is, whether it's on her own or when she was, Dark Phoenix. There's a reason why even Charles Xavier has feared her. Her powers are off the charts. Over the years, she's not only taken on some of the biggest, scariest villains in the Marvel Universe, but also its heroes. Most notably, during the Dark Phoenix storyline, which is one of the most famous comic stories of all time. Fans just can't get enough of it. Even without the Phoenix Force, Jean has telepathy, telekinesis, memory alteration, so basically she can erase, restore, or even implant memories into someone. She could literally erase someone's memories and make them a completely different person if she just wanted to. Of course, she wouldn't, unless it was like a life or death situation, but that option is always on the table. Number 1, Magneto. I've mentioned before how scary Magneto can be. It's not just because of his powers, it's his ability to manipulate people. He's crazy good at it. And if you need proof, just look at his army of followers. People trust him and will give their lives for him. And it's usually not even out of fear. It sometimes can be, but it's usually because they want to fight for him. His powers also really help. He has the ability to control all forms of magnetism, which he mostly uses to manipulate all forms of metal, including adamantium. He also has trained himself to fight off telepaths, so they can't control or use him. With all that, it's not hard to see why he's the X-Men's greatest foe. And one of the most dangerous people in the Marvel Universe. Number 10, Nightcrawler. The teleporting son of Mystique and Azazel. He's such a cool character. Fans adore him, and it's not hard to see why. He has an intriguing backstory, but also his powers are visually very cool. One of the cool things about Kurt is that he technically can't die. His mutant ability doesn't really let him age, so depending on how he lives his life, it could be forever. Now, I should mention that he has died before, but he ended up returning. That's life of being an X-Men, I guess. He's consistently putting himself in danger so that, they can protect people. You never know what day will be your last. But it is the comic world, so even if he dies again, I'm sure he will find a way back. Again. Number 9, Hope Summers. Hope Summers is the adopted daughter of Cable, aka Nathan Summers. Now, during the Avengers vs. X-Men event, once they managed to extract the Pheonix Force from Cyclops, she was able to harness its power, which in turn made her essentially immortal. She was then known as the White Phoenix for a little while, and worked with Scarlet Witch to help restore the mutant race after it was almost completely wiped out a few years prior. Number 8, Mystique. Earlier on in this list I talked about her son, Nightcrawler, so it should come as no surprise that Raven would also be on this list. Now, Raven is a shapeshifter. She can transform her body into anyone, and that comes with a lot of perks. One of them being she essentially can't die. Mystique is said to be over 100 years old, but you would never know because she can be any age she wants to, essentially. Of course, she is not immune to being killed in any other types of ways, but she's extremely resourceful, so I would not bet against her. Number 7. Psylocke. Psylocke is a mutant with a telekinetic ability. She has become quite popular over the last few years, even making a jump into the comic book movie world in X-Men Apocalypse. Now, she has been no stranger to death in the comics. In Extreme X-Men, she was killed by the villain known as Vargas. She then was brought back to life by her brother Jamie. But that's not all. She then died again in the Hunt for Wolverine series, but of course, she didn't stay dead for that long. She was powerful enough to bring herself back this time, proving once again that not even death can keep her down. Number 6. Apocalypse. Technically, Apocalypse is said to be immortal, yet he has been defeated and killed a few different times. But that hasn't stopped him from returning again and again and again. Number 5. Franklin Richards. Franklin is the son of Reed Richards and Susan Storm, better known as Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman. But the crazy thing is, Franklin is a mutant, and a super powerful one at that. Seriously, he's considered to be an Omega level mutant. Even Galactus has said that he is the most powerful mutant ever born. And coming from Galactus, that's a big deal. Pun most definitely intended. Even alternate versions of him are powerful. There's a version of him from Earth 12665 that actually took down 2 Celestials and became immortal. I mean, I can't imagine what Reed and Sue must think. Franklin is also the main source of conflict in the new Fantastic Four X-Men series. If you have time, I would definitely recommend picking that one up. Number 4. Professor X. Charles Xavier technically died during the Avengers vs. X-Men event series, but years later he made his triumphant return to the land of the living. Just not in the way we all expected. I mean, we knew he would return eventually, but just not like this. Turns out when he was killed by Dark Pheonix Cyclops, his consciousness was found by the Shadow King, and basically he was trapped in an astral plane for what felt like hundreds of years. But he eventually found a way to escape and possessed the body of Phantom X. And he wasn't going by Professor X anymore. He now wanted to be called X. So that's how Xavier came back. Number 3. Jean Grey. Jean Grey and Death have a tricky relationship. When she was harnessing the Phoenix Force, nothing could really kill her, but she did end up dying and coming back, both in the comics and the films. The funny thing is, the film version is actually more confusing than the comic version. X-Men movie continuity is, well, super confusing, to the point where fans have now just accepted that it's just messed up and will never be fixed. Like, Days of Future Past was supposed to fix everything and even brought Jean back. But then, the past storylines changed it yet again with the release of the new Dark Phoenix film. My head hurts even thinking about it. But regardless, Jean dies and she comes back. She never stays dead. Number 2, Deadpool. Wade Wilson. Can anything kill him? Well, yeah, kind of. He has died a couple of times in the comics, and briefly in the movie Deadpool 2. But he does end up coming back. I mean, he's a hard person to kill. He has an insane healing factor that basically protects him from anything, similar to Wolverine. But that hasn't stopped writers from trying to end the Merc with the Mouth story every now and again. For example, in the film Deadpool 2, he does die briefly because he saves a kid and wants to be with Vanessa. But of course, it's not his time, and not only does Vanessa feel that way, but Cable as well, who ends up time traveling to save him. Man, what a cool friendship they have. And then, of course, Wade gets a hold of Cable's time travel device and causes a whole bunch of mayhem on the timeline, even stopping Ryan Reynolds from playing Green Lantern and the ending of X-Men Origins Wolverine. Number 1. Wolverine. Wolverine is a very interesting one. Known for his adamantium claws and healing factor, Logan is basically the definition of unkillable. He has survived countless opponents and events over the years that should have killed him but didn't. He's been blown up and completely regenerated, although he did die during the Death of Wolverine storyline, but he didn't stay dead forever. Logan returned, proving that no matter what happens, he will always return. Although he did die during the 2017 film Logan, which was just an amazing movie, but that's more because Hugh Jackman was, retiring from the role and they wanted to give him a fitting exit, which they did.
Number 10. Broo. Broo is a unique mutant because of his alien heritage. He is part brood, part mutant. Broo was born with a mutation that allows him to feel compassion. So you might think that being born with compassion should not be considered a mutation or a superpower, but for the Brood race, it is. They do not normally feel such things, making them a devastatingly dangerous race when it comes to warfare. Being born with such abnormalities often results in the death of the mutated newborn, but because the population of the Brood was so low at the time, the Brood Queen actually allowed Brood to live, though he was abandoned, sadly. While his mutant ability might not seem strong in the conventional way, it makes him remarkably unique. Add in his genius intellect and you have both a fascinating and powerful mutant. Number 9. Aaliyah Bishop. Aaliyah is the daughter of Mutant Bishop from the alternate reality of Earth 41001. In that reality, Bishop and the Shi'ar Deathbird fell in love and had a child together, and this child was Aaliyah. We first meet Aaliyah in the comics traveling around space on the Starjammer spaceship. While she is mutant, we have yet to see her mutant abilities appear in the comics. However, based on what we know of generational mutant families, it can be assumed that her powers would be in the same wheelhouse as her father's and probably be similar to his, involving some kind of energy absorption or manipulation. Regardless, even without her mutant powers, she is fairly deadly, exhibiting skills in both armed and unarmed combat. Aaliyah is a skilled fighter, something she likely inherited from both of her parents. Number 8. Zakan. Zakan is part of Cadre K, a group of Skrull mutants similar to the X-Men. Skrull mutants who fight for mutant rights and equality with the same dream as Charles Xavier. In fact, they've even fought with Charles Xavier before. Zakan is therefore not just a shapeshifter, but also possesses the mutant power of telepathy and telekinesis. She can use her mutant powers to control minds, erase memories, create illusions, and in dire situations, move objects. When she touched Rogue, it was shown that her telepathic powers were so great that she inadvertently boosted Rogue's ability to absorb memories, amplifying and mutating it. Number 7. Ultra Girl. Ultra Girl is Susanna of the Kree, or Susanna Sherman on Earth. They're spelled differently, but they sound the same. Much of her past remains a mystery. She is adopted and was raised on Earth, though the Kree kept an eye on her, as she was prophesied to bring great glory to the Kree Empire by defeating some of their greatest enemies. At least some of the greatest enemies of the pink-skinned Kree. In her own self-titled miniseries, Ultra Girl discovered that she was a mutant when a Sentinel attacked her, although at the time her powers had not yet manifested. Of her superpowers, we know that she possesses super strength, super speed, enhanced durability and agility. She also possesses a fairly strong healing factor, and like most part Kree superheroes, she can fly. Although oddly enough, flight is not a part of the inherent Kree physiology. So why so many half Kree can fly? I don't know. Number 6. Abigail Brand. We don't know where her father was from or who her mother is, but what we do know is that Abigail Brand is half alien, half human, and a mutant to boot, which she gets from her mother's side. She is known for being the tough, no-nonsense head of SWORD, an area of S.H.I.E.L.D. that is known for focusing on guarding the Earth against extraterrestrial threats. Her mutant power grants her the ability of pyrokinesis. She can heat up her hands and make contact with beings or materials, burning them or even burning through them. She can also control the level of heat that she emits. Her alien heritage also gives her a tongue that allows her to be able to speak alien languages that humans cannot. Number 5. Adam X. Adam X originally worked for Martin Strong, who gave him his name, as a hound rounding up mutants. A bloodhound. He is from Shi'ar but lost his memories about his past at some point during his time on Earth. In working for Strong, he found himself in conflict with the X-Force, who eventually convinced him to join them in taking Strong down and using his powers to defend mutants as opposed to track and catch them. Adam X's mutant powers allow him to electrically charge blood, causing his enemies to fry from the inside out. Ugh. He also has enhanced physiology due to him being a member of the Shi'ar race. Number 4. Lifeguard. Heather Cameron is half Shi'ar, half human, and all mutant. She first appeared in Extreme X-Men Volume 1, which is also the series wherein she learned of her Shi'ar heritage. Heather is originally from Australia, where she worked as a lifeguard. Her mutant powers grant her a sort of spidey sense and the powers needed to do something about that danger sense. When her life or another's is in danger, she senses it and is granted the powers needed to save that life. These powers also come with the knowledge of how to use them, so although she might not have experience with that power set, this will not hinder Lifeguard. Her codename is obviously both a nod to her profession and her power set. Her brother Davis, aka Slipstream, is also a mutant, but he was depowered following M-Day, whereas Heather was not. Still, we don't really know what she's up to now. Where did she go? Will she appear in Dawn of X? Number 3. Dupe. One of the most ridiculous and mysterious mutants, Dupe's origins are shrouded in mystery. It has been suggested that he was artificially created in a lab, or that he has either magical or cosmic origins, hailing from an alien planet or perhaps another dimension entirely. For our purpose, we are going to run with the mysterious alien heritage angle, which is plausible considering he is only able to speak in his own alien tongue. Despite not knowing what potential alien race he could belong to, we do know a lot about his power set. Dupe has the powers of resurrection, flight, has a genius intellect, can alter his size, and is capable of emitting psionic blasts. He has also shown that he is capable of using magic and breaking the fourth wall. In fact, his seeming awareness that he exists in comics allows him to also be a powerful teleporter. He can travel through space and time by moving between the margins within comics. I know, it's cool. It's a cool ability. Number 2. Sponge. Sponge is another member of the Cadre K, the Skrull mutant version of the X-Men. His powers allow him to absorb energy. He can then rechannel said energy through his body, using it to make him durable or blasting it back at his targets with concussive force. Beyond that, his powers also seem to let him absorb skills and talents as well when connected to other Skrull mutants via the member of the Cadre K Neuro, who can tap into and link the nervous systems of his teammates through touch. So we really are talking about all kinds of crazy types of energy absorption when we're talking about Sponge. Like, it's cool if you're not a pilot and you can be like, now I know how to pilot a ship. I don't know why I did a weird voice for that. That's probably not what Sponge sounds like. But maybe it is, who knows. Number 1. Gaia. First appearing in Generation X Volume 1 Issue 37, she was found in an alternate reality in the Citadel of the Universal Amalgamator at the end of time, which was created with the intent of smooshing together all sentient beings' consciousness. Gaia was both its guardian and its prisoner, the key to activating the Amalgamator and the protector of it, defending it against it being used by evil beings. Gaia was saved by Sync and Penance and traveled through a secret warp chamber hidden in the Citadel, which coincidentally led back to their own reality. We do not know of her origins, if she was fully human or from another planet, but her galaxy was apparently destroyed as the result of her refusing to activate the Amalgamator. So sounds like she's probably alien. Gaia's powers allow her to warp reality using extra-dimensional matter and energy, making her immortal, super durable, super strong, and giving her telepathic and telekinetic abilities. She spent some time as a student at Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, but eventually left to explore and experience Earth.